everyone, my name is Tiffany Britton and welcome back to another episode of Empowerment Through Performing Arts. Today we're here with Elizabeth Veltrie and she is a dance therapist as well as a writer alum. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. First off, I'd love to know, how would you define dance therapy?
So dance therapy is a form of psychotherapy which uses movement to promote social, cognitive, emotional, and physical integration of an individual.
And what sparked your interest in dance therapy?
So I was a dancer ever since I could walk. My mom used to tell me all the time that I used to use the kitchen oven as a mirror and I used to dance around. So I knew dance was always a part of my life. While I was here at Ryder, I was more interested in the performing aspect of dance, and I actually majored in journalism as well. So I was interested in dance. Writing about dance. I interned at Dance Magazine while I was in school, and after I graduated, I accepted a position at a hospital for children and adults with developmental disabilities, and there I was a facilitator, and these individuals choreographed dance pieces the majority of these individuals were in wheelchairs, so not able-bodied dancers, which was very interesting for me. It was a little out of the ordinary. And this sparked my interest in dance therapy and how I can incorporate the use of dance in a very different way. So that is from there, after I left that job, that's when I started graduate school for dance therapy, and here I am.
Cool. So you mentioned graduate school just now. So what was that whole process of becoming certified as a dance therapist? What kind of courses did you have to take?
Sure. So in order to be a dance therapist, you need to hold a master's degree. So I have a Master's of Science from Pratt Institute in Brooklyn. There were a number of different psychology courses that you needed to take in order to get into the program, and then from the program, in the program itself, there was a number of different classes as well.
So what does a typical session or appointment look like?
Yeah, so that is kind of the beauty of the field, is that you're not entirely sure of what's going to happen. It kind of flourishes and develops as the session progresses. So you can come in as a dance therapist having an idea of what you imagine the session's going to look like, and it could come out very different. And I think that was something that I had difficulty with in the beginning, was that I'm a very type A person. I like organization, I like schedule, I like knowing what's going to happen. And here I am walking into a therapy session with somebody and it's not going the way I planned, right? So loosening those reins and being okay with the uncertainty was something that took time for me to get used to, but once I did, it's really great. So usually the sessions start off with what we call as a warm-up. So you can imagine it looks very similar to a traditional warm-up in dance. We get the body ready to get moving, and then from there it kind of just develops in a therapeutic session, and we use imagery and we talk about, oh, that movement you just did reminds me of playing on a playground, right? So themes develop, and that's where the processing, what we call processing at the end of a session, would be talking about how what we did in that session relates to what you're working on therapeutically.
Interesting. And you just mentioned, I'm also a type A person. Like, yeah. I am so structured. Yes. I could not imagine my life without my Google Calendar.
Yeah.
So, I'm just wondering, you mentioned that one of the challenges you had to overcome was just letting go.
Yeah.
So how exactly did you go about that? Because it sounds so easy, but I feel like it's not.
Years of doing this. I was a ballet dancer. Ballet was my thing, so very structured. So, yeah, it took me a long time to be okay with something going not in the way I had expected. But it's funny now because it doesn't even bother me now. That's the other thing is as a therapist, they're doing the work. So you can only do so much, and the rest is their process, is their experience. So years. It's taken years, but it's okay.
You're there now.
That's okay, yes.
So through all those years then, did you find that there's one specific exercise or series of movement that kind of seems to work for everyone?
Yeah, so I primarily work with kids. I've worked in the pediatric setting. I currently work with kids in an inpatient psychiatric unit. So an exercise I usually do with them is, I call it the name game. So it's very simple, and I even introduce it as like, you might feel really silly, guys, but that's okay. Like, we're all going to be silly together, and that kind of builds that cohesiveness already in the group, right? So I usually start. I say, okay, we're going to say our name, and then we're going to come up with a movement to describe our name, and even a simple exercise like this could give you a really good idea of where these kids are, like, emotionally. So I'll usually go first, then we go around the circle, and everybody memorizes everybody's move. So by the time we get around the entire circle, we have essentially an entire dance, right? So then I say, okay, we have all these moves, we're going to turn on some music. So let's pick a song that we think would go really well with this, right? So we try it to something that's fast, that's peppy. We try it to something that's slower, all different types. And then from there, so I already got them moving, right? So we're warmed up, we're ready to go. And after that exercise, we kind of talk about what it was like to try somebody else's move, right? So if somebody did something really loud, like such as a clap or a stomp, and somebody else did something really quiet or something slow, or here I am saying, it's going to be a little startling for somebody to try something new, right? So we talk about that.
So in your career, do you have a moment that you're most proud of?
The biggest one for me is actually when I was in graduate school. So I was, the graduate program that I was in, the grad students were primarily placed in internships on psychiatric floors, and I was very, very much interested in working with kids. I wanted to do pediatrics, so I wanted to do medical dance movement therapy, which is not necessarily very popular. So the field of dance therapy started on a psychiatric floor. So the majority of dance therapists kind of work in those hospital settings. I wanted to kind of branch out and do something very different, so I wanted to do pediatric medical. I pushed to have an internship, and they actually got me into a hospital in New York City my last year of graduate school, where I developed a program, and I did a rotation throughout the entire pediatrics. So I worked in pediatric emergency room. I did some work in the NICU. I did emergency, like peds ER. So I rotated throughout the hospital. I switched every 6 weeks to a different unit. So I would say that was probably something I'm most proud of, because there wasn't anything, and here I am as a student kind of walking in and having to, interact with big shot doctors, and I presented a grand rounds at the end of my program, which is a pretty big accomplishment, because you present to the entire hospital staff. So it was I would say that's probably my number one.
That's huge. Congratulations. Yeah. That's amazing.
Thank you.
Oh my gosh.
Thank you.
I'm so excited for you. That's incredible.
Thanks.
So since we've talked a lot about your career and all that you do in dance therapy, can we talk about a little bit like what you do outside? Like, do you have any hobbies? What do you like to do?
Yeah. So I've got 3 kids. They definitely keep my husband and I very busy. They are 4, 3, and 6 weeks.
Wow.
So yeah, that's definitely number one. But I also am a baker. So I have a sugar cookie bakery. So I make custom sugar cookies, and that keeps me busy as well. And I tend to use it as a coping skill. So, people are like, oh, it's a lot of work. Like, that's a lot of work into the cookies. And I'm like, well, it's actually kind of relaxing, and that's what I use to, like, unwind to do that. So it doesn't feel like work.
All right. Well, thank you so much for all this. We have one more question for you.
Sure.
So how can viewers stay in touch with you, or maybe even schedule an appointment with you?
So I use Instagram a lot, believe it or not. So my Instagram handle is Mom Don't Stop, my personal one. My bakery one, if you want sugar cookies, is Pour Some Sugar on It. That's my bakery.
That's so cute.
Yeah. So that's an easy way to get in touch with me as well. I do have Facebook too. So I do not have any sort of private practice work, so I don't do anything outside of the hospital. But if anybody's really interested in doing dance therapy in a private practice, I do know a number of people that do have practices, so I could definitely link them up with somebody.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time today and for being here. It was
Thank
great
you
to
for
learn your
having me.
story.
Yeah,
Yes, of course. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Empowerment Through Performing Arts, and we will see you next time.